Hey everyone, Wasim here from the channel Handsome Smiles. Welcome to another video. Today we'll be doing a review of Heritage from the house of Guerlain. This fragrance was released all the way back in 1992 and is classified as a woody spicy. The nose behind this scent is Jean-Paul Guerlain, who was the fourth generation head perfumer at Guerlain. Prior to that, his father, grandfather and great-grandfather were the founders and head perfumers at the time. Jean-Paul Guerlain worked at Guerlain as a perfumer, I believe from the 50s all the way to the early 2000s, after which he stayed on as a consultant to Thierry Wassa, but he was then removed in the early 2010s due to a quite controversial interview he made on French TV. Some other fragrances created by Jean-Paul Guerlain other than Heritage were Vetiver and Habit Rouge, the eau de toilette concentrations from the 1960s. He also was behind a number of female classics from the house of Guerlain, most notably Samsara. So that was a little bit of a background of Guerlain and Heritage. Let's talk about the note list. And like many fragrances from that generation, the 90s and early 80s, the note list of those fragrances are quite extensive. So let's talk through the note list. At the top, we're going to get Lavender, Aldehydes, Juniper berries, Clary sage, Bergamot, lemon, violet, petitgrain, and green notes. The heart of the fragrance is patchouli, coriander, geranium, pepper, carnation, balsam fir, rose, pink pepper, orris root, jasmine, cyclamen, and lily of the valley. The base of the fragrance is sandalwood, amber, oakmoss, cedar, and musk. So those were the notes of Heritage, but what do we really get on our skin? I'm just going to spray the opening onto a testing strip here just to remind me what the opening is like. This is my scent of the day today, and since I got this into my collection, I've been wearing it quite extensively, so I feel quite ready for a review. I bought this about a month ago. You might have seen my first impressions, and since then I've put a pretty decent dent into this. So like I mentioned, released in 1992, what do we really get on our skin? So when you first spray on Heritage onto your skin, you are introduced to a beautiful brightness, which also has a gentle, subtle, clean, ambery warmness, which comes across on my skin quite boozy. The opening is quite beautiful. The blast of brightness that you get is from the note of the aldehydes. And along with that, like I mentioned, you get this gentle, clean, sweet, ambery booziness. That may be coming from the note of the amber. There's some sweetness possibly coming from the note of the juniper berries. And along with all of this, I also get the note of the lavender. The lavender especially gives off this sort of masculine, clean quality on my skin. Lavender is used a lot in like cleaning products, and a lot of the time in a lot of fragrances, lavender gives to me like a soapy quality. I don't get that at all in Heritage. The lavender in this gives off on my skin quite a comforting sort of feel. As the fragrance develops on my skin into the heart, it keeps the lavender from the opening but loses the bright aldehydes that you got in the opening. And as the fragrance develops into the heart, you're introduced to a patchouli. Now the patchouli in this gives this fragrance in the heart a bit of more of like a woodier quality and a touch more of an earthy quality. The patchouli in Heritage is the main note on my skin. However, Heritage isn't an out and out patchouli based fragrance. There's other notes in this which combine with the patchouli to create its own very unique scent. As the fragrance dries down on my skin, it keeps the lavender and the patchouli from the opening and the heart, and it's then introduced to some powdery notes on my skin, a little bit more of a sweetness and a touch more of the vanilla. The main notes that I pick up in the dry down are possibly the Orris and the Sandalwood, which gives off a little bit more of that powdery feeling that I mentioned. And along with that, I get a little bit more of the sweetness, possibly coming from the amber or the vanilla. There's also an increased woodiness in the dry down as well. I'm not sure if that's coming from the sandalwood or maybe might be coming from a note of cedar. Overall, this scent into the dry down becomes this slightly beautiful woody slightly powdery, a touch of earthiness on my skin. Overall, it's a very beautiful, gorgeous, slightly boozy sort of scent on my skin. With the note of lavender, it gives off a touch of masculinity. In terms of performance on my skin, Heritage lasts around between 6 to 8 hours. On some days it really pushed to 8 hours, and some days I felt like the scent only lasted on my skin around 6 hours. Longevity wise, it's not too bad. In terms of projection, this is where Heritage really disappointed on my skin. I'm not sure if it's due to it being a reformulation. I'm not sure if it smelled better when it was in this sort of Listerine sort of packaging, but on my skin, Heritage didn't perform as well as what many people were saying in their reviews, either on YouTube or on Fragrantica and Base Notes. So projection on my skin for the first 2 hours was moderate. It wasn't screaming or jumping off really strongly, but after the 2 hour mark, it really became a skin scent on my skin. And you couldn't really detect it unless someone came very closely to you. You just have a very, very gentle scent cloud around you. In terms of occasions, I think Heritage works well as a signature fragrance for a modern, sophisticated, mature man. It also works really well in a work and professional setting, and could work really well as a dinner date fragrance. In terms of seasons, I think this works really well for all seasons of the year, apart from the really high heat of summer. If I was to choose one particular season, I think this one works perfectly in the spring and autumn, or the fall for you Americans. I think overall rating for me on my skin, due to its performance, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a beautiful, classic, masculine scent from the house of Guerlain. The scent itself is quite beautiful. It's got this lovely patchouli, ambery, sort of boozy sort of scent, but the performance on my skin lets it down, which is why I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do leave me a like and a comment below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do. Until next time, my friends, see you later.